I'd like to be under the sea. Ain't an octopus is gone with you.
Well, let's do just that. Let's go under the sea because Marco Bordieri from Sydney Underwater Gazette is with us. How to measure the age of a fish and why this matters is what we will discuss right now. Marco, good morning.
Good morning, Renee. How are you?
The age of a fish. How do you know the age of a fish? I mean, when fish are very little, you're constantly catching them and measuring them and thinking, no, they're not an adult. Need to throw them back.
Yes.
But how do you know when they've become an adult?
Yeah, that's the point where adults, their size is given, so you can't actually change, doesn't change, so you can't measure them. So there is an interesting way to measure the age of a fish, and this basically is based on the ear stones or otoliths.
The ear stones.
Yes, so these are little stones, and we also, as humans, we have the very similar ones. So those stones are in the ears of the fish. They have 3 couples of them, and they can be as small as a fraction of a millimeter on a small fish, or let's say 1 centimeter for the bigger fish. And they all have them, at least the bony fishes. So apart from sharks and rays, because they have cartilagens, they're different type of structure. But all the bony fishes have these little stones in the ear. And what they do, these little stones, they receive a daily amount of cover with calcium carbonate.
Hold up, Marco. So
yeah,
fish have ears?
They do. They normally they don't have an opening. You don't see them. They are hidden behind the eyes, and they have the same similar mechanism. So they don't actually hear sounds. They hear vibration in the water.
Yeah.
But the way they perceive the vibration is pretty similar. So these stones are surrounded by air, and this air is sensitive to movement. So when there is an acceleration, let's say vibration in the water, the stone moves and the air perceive the movement and they perceive the vibration. That's also very similar what our ears do. So, we have a way to understand not just the noise, but also the vibration and the motion. That's what keeps us balanced when we walk. Is a similar mechanism where we can, understand our balance and whether there is any acceleration that we need to compensate when we're walking.
Yes. So how does the little fish stone ears or otoliths, how does that tell us about the fish's age?
Yeah, so every day there is a layer of calcium that is deposited on this little stone. That's why the stone over time grows in size. But exactly like a log of a tree, when you cut it, you can count the rings, and each ring is a season for the tree. You can do the same with a microscope, and you can, again, a very small, it could be as small as 1
we just
millimeter.
missed you there, Marco. So you
hello?
said, you said that it's just like the rings of a tree when you cut open the ear stones or the otoliths.
Yes, exactly. So when you cut these little stones, you can count how many rings are visible. And each ring, if it's a juvenile, the smaller rings are actually the days because they are connected to the daily feeding cycle. So a fish normally has a cycle during the day. So these rings are measuring the days of life of the fish. And over the years, because the fish also has a seasonal pattern, there are seasons where the fish eats more or less. So the thickness of these rings that you can see in these otoliths are the indication of how many years.
Wow. Right. And so have human beings actually done this? Opened up the fish's ears and looked at the otoliths and cut those otoliths open and had a look at the number of rings that they're seeing in a microscope?
Absolutely. I mean, they do as a routine. In US, they do this 100,000 times a year because there is an important element. In the age of the fish, it's important to manage the stock to understand the impact of pollution or other elements. So clearly the fish has to be dead, because you don't extract it when it's alive.
Yeah.
So they can only do on the fish that has been caught. But it's absolutely a routine now. It's a key element in the management of the stock.
Wow, I never knew that. So, what have we learnt then? So, we look at the age of the fish, we understand how many fish live, what the fish populations are in a particular area. What
Yes,
else?
the interesting. These are like a time capsule. It's like a recorder in the life of the fish, because also depending on the water the fish is in, some different substances deposit on this stone. So by looking at the stone, we can tell the migration of a fish, where maybe it spent some time in one area and then it moved in another one, with different salinity of different type of water. So it's literally like a recorder, because everything gets deposited, gets recorded in this stone. But also, when you take a fish and you look into the guts of the fish, you may find what the fish has been feeding, because you can find other fish, otoliths, in the belly of a fish. Because they are not digested, they are like stones. So you can understand the diet of a fish by looking at what smaller fish has been eaten, because the otoliths are still in the guts.
Very interesting. And so, in Australia, have we been studying the otoliths of particular fish?
Well, definitely we have been using it for understanding the conditions that were there, up to 10,000 years in the past, because the Aboriginals used to collect all the remains of a fish after a meal in what is called a midden. A
Middens,
midden is,
yes,
yeah,
yes.
it's like a dump site where all these, discharge parts are located. So by looking at these middens and collecting these ear stones that are still preserved, because again, being a stone doesn't, deteriorate over time, they can see what type of fish and what type of salinity, what type of water was there 10,000 years ago, just by analyzing these elements.
Yeah. And what have we learnt?
Well, for example, 5,000 years ago, in the Murray River, which is, as you may know, the longest river in Australia, there was a giant Murray cod that was 220 meters long,
Ooh,
because they've been finding, yeah, it was a huge. I mean, even now there are some that are reach 180 centimeters, but back in the days, they used to be bigger, up to 2 meter and 20.
2 meters and 20?
Huge. I know.
This is the Murray cod that was living 5,000 years ago, you say, in the Murray River.
Exactly. By looking at those ear stones, and from the ear stones, understanding how long they lived and the size they got to.
That is extraordinary. Marco, we're almost out of time, but you've got to tell us what's happening tomorrow, Sunday, the 11th of December, at the quarantine station.
Yes, there is an interesting event. So tomorrow, at the quarantine station, we are celebrating the 40th anniversary of the North Harbour Aquatic Reserve. So from 10 o'clock in the morning, there will be talks, games, snorkeling, diving, cleanups, you name it.
Hmm.
I will be talking about sea turtles, but there will be also real scientists talking about more technical stuff. And yeah, you can find some information. If you go to our Facebook page, the Sydney Underwater Gazette,
Lovely.
there is a link to the event.
You should be talking about the otoliths in the fish's ears, because that is really, really quite fascinating. What are conditions like today for diving and snorkeling, Marco?
They've been quite average during the week, because there was a big swell coming from south. Swell is still persistent, so conditions are not great. The only few protected sites, like Cabbage Tree Bay in Shelley Beach, mainly, probably is the only place where you can get into the water without much swell. They are improving. Tomorrow will be a little bit better, but I'm not expecting much from this weekend, unfortunately.
Shelley Beach is the pick. Hey, Marco, thanks very much. Have
Yes.
yourself a great weekend. Good luck tomorrow with your talk on sea turtles at the quarantine station, celebrating 40 years of the North Harbour Aquatic Reserve. We'll catch you soon, Marco. Thank you.
Thank you, and have a good day.
That's Marco Bordieri. Let's go to